So first of all, I want to establish is that not all ideas are good, i.e. this picture. If you look, that is a rope attached to the airplane back in the 1930s that somebody was trying to discover at that point. I'm not sure what the idea was, but I know it was a bad one. Here's another idea. It's called the Edsel. And some people decided at Ford that they would create a car and not let the public know about it. It'd be in secret, developed by designers, and never, ever do a focus group, never involve anyone else's opinion, only the designers. And the Edsel lost Ford $2 billion, okay? So not all ideas are good, but some ideas are very, very simple and very, very good, like this. That's a wonderful little equation that was the foundation of something called PageRank. And PageRank brought in $32 billion in revenue through Google. That was the original algorithm to help start Google right there in what they did in page ranking. So the idea is the right idea could be very, very small and yet very, very profound. And so that's what we're all in search of. Some ideas find us, other ones we find, but the more important thing is to recognize which ones really can be opportunities, not just good ideas. So a little bit of my story was that a guy came to me, and I was a youth pastor. He came and said, hey, I want to bike across the country to raise some money for some missionary projects and some humanitarian projects. And I said, that's really cool. You're a cyclist. And he says, no, I'm not a cyclist. I'm like, oh, do you have a bike? He's like, no, I don't have a bike. I went, oh, do you know how to raise money? No. Do you have any money? No. When do you want to go? He said, 2 months. I was like, oh, okay. Let's try it. Let's see. And just took a risk and flew out, and it turned into an awesome trip. It raised $16,000 for some people who really needed help down in Argentina. And then that kind of snowballed into this thing called Venture Expeditions. And over the past few years, it raised over $1 million so far now to dig over 100 wells in Africa. We have tomorrow, 250,000 meals are going to the Burmese-Thai border for the refugee crisis there. Got a safe houses for girls who've been pulled out of slave prostitution up in both Kunming, China, and in Burma, Thailand border, Mae Sai area. And we got a child center in Thailand. So it started to grow, and then all of a sudden there's people wanting to do trips all over. A guy named Don Miller wrote this book called Blue Like Jazz, and he then went on a trip with us, and that was a New York Times bestseller. Then he wrote about his trip, and that became a New York Times bestseller, and then people from all over the country started calling us, so we have to hire staff, figure out what's going on. So that's a little bit of that story of venture. And so that caused me to want to go, wait a minute, how in the world do you run an organization? How do we build upon an idea that's kind of growing, but we don't know how to manage it? And so it felt like I needed to go and get an MBA at St. Thomas, which is an awesome school. I really do love their program there. There's a Schultz School of Entrepreneurship. Dick Schultz started a small company called Best Buy, and that grew to be a big company. And then he wrote a $55 million check to the school and said, would you name a school after me? And so there was this Schultz School of Entrepreneurship. And it's a really wonderful place, and they really are good at hammering out what ideas are, starting with good ideas and really hammering them out into great opportunities. So that's just a little bit of venture, and just recently, just for fun, we got to throw out the opening pitch at a Yankees game, and we got on CNN and the Weather Channel, which is, you've arrived when you made it to the Weather Channel. That's what I always figure. But so here's what happened. In the midst of, while I was in the program at St. Thomas, I noticed that there were a bunch of travel agencies that were targeting the Christian missionary market. But there was nobody kind of targeting the volunteer travelers, somebody who just went to Peace Corps or wanted to go, but wasn't with a particular church. And so no one was really targeting that group. Turned into that marketing paper, started showing some people, they popped holes in it and said it's an interesting idea, and they started beating it up. And I think that that's what needs to happen to an idea. In fact, that an idea usually doesn't start out great. It needs to be beat up a little bit and run through filters and run through a bunch of different people's ideas, and it can turn into a great idea. And so that eventually turned into a company called Fly for Good that I started about 4.5 years ago. And so we targeted this whole group that didn't really have a target. And people were like, wow, there's even a company for us? And they're like, that's great, but, and then there was always that but as you're running into it. And I talked with one of my professors and said, hey, everyone loves us. No one will buy from us. And what's going on? And he said, well, you got two problems. You got a credibility gap. And he said, and you've got to be able to at least prove that it works. And so he said, but don't worry, there's a trick to this. He said, you have to borrow your influence and buy your first customers. And I went, huh? He says, yeah, that's kind of how it works. And so when you're dealing with larger organizations, you have to borrow the influence. So we basically went and said, listen, this works. It really does. Can you be our guinea pigs, and we will give you a deal that we're basically losing money on, and it'll be great for you, and we are good people, and we will stand behind it. They finally wrestled a few of them to say yes, and then we totally bragged about these companies that worked with us and put it on our website. A couple of companies were Invisible Children and Kiva, and eventually we got Harvard University to do a trip with us or use this for airfare. And once we were able to throw out Harvard, it was only just a little bit of tickets, but everyone's like, "Oh, you do Harvard?" And so, and then it just kind of started snowballing from there. And so again, we didn't make a dime on Harvard because we wanted just to buy our first customers. But once we got that, we could borrow their influence and say, "Hey, do you mind if we tell people that you use this?" They're like, "We don't care." And so then that's kind of how that snowballed. So it's grown. We're just really, really grateful that it's grown in the midst of the recession, and it's been kind of doubling each year for the past couple of years. And it's about, I don't know, do you guys talk like...
You can talk numbers.
Numbers? Okay. Yeah, we'll hit about...
We can do this session until about 7:20.
Oh, you don't mind? Okay.
No rush through.
Okay.
Talk numbers, though.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I love numbers.
Oh, good, good, good. Okay, so airfare is one of those amazing industries that the numbers make you sound cooler than you are. But we do about $6 million in revenue this year. And it started with just very, very small numbers, but it comes up to about $6 million this year. And then a lot of that is through some really just key deals that once a few people use you, then you get to go to the bigger fish and then the bigger fish. And again, if you look for the fish like a Harvard that doesn't have really a lot of business, but they have a big name, then that really helps to be able to get the real big fish that actually have all kinds of people that no one's ever heard of. So that's kind of what you kind of roll into. And so some of our biggest clients, I could list them all off, and everyone would be like, "Wow, I've never even heard of them." And that's just how the world works. It just seems like when you're trying to find in a particular niche or a particular industry. So as it moved on, and that's been a blast. It's been really fun. I had a little bit of background in airfare through my dad's companies, and so we were able to have some already expertise in that. And that's something that they always tell entrepreneurs is don't try and start something that you have no clue if it's a complicated business. If it's an easy one, go for it. But if it's a complicated business, make sure you have somebody on the team that has some really good expertise. And in my case, what we did was I had some people that were friends of my dad that had worked for my dad, and I said, I'll just give you some equity. And if you work and add your experience, we'll be able to make this thing happen. And then my wife and I made a real big decision to take our entire, all the money we've saved for retirement, everything, every cent of it. So all of our life savings, we dumped it into this company trying to start it. And so there's a bit of risk that you have to go on. And you want to calculate before you take the risk, because then that's really foolish. And that's why the ideas are a really important thing, like I was telling about. You want to really whip an idea into shape, really beat it until you really believe in it. And then you'll be able to throw some money into the whole thing. So this next week will be the last payment on our business loan. So I'm really excited for the whole company. It's going to be exciting to be able to knock that off, and that just feels great. It's almost like burning a mortgage, but anyway, so. But the payments are way higher than a mortgage. So that's a little bit of the thing. But when we started Fly for Good, our very first sale was a misquote, and we lost $800. So I thought, oh, I just invested my whole life savings in this thing, and our first sale was losing $800. If we get more business like this, we're not going to, the burn rate will be terrible. So it's just one of those things where you just really got to gut through some of this stuff, where you just go, and then our first contact us was somebody who didn't get a humanitarian discounted airfare, because there's 13 airlines that offer these humanitarian discounted airfares. They looked up and they didn't happen to find one. And they're like, how do you sleep at night? You're ripping off, volunteer people and da-da-da-da. And so I went, wow. So our first sale is a misquote. Our first contact us is, how do you sleep at night? We're doing great. This is a way, this is going to be awesome, And so, and then you adjust on the fly and you make sure that there's a bunch of, the original idea was good. We just had to beat it into shape. We changed a little bit of our marketing stance. We're like, well, you don't always get discounts, but they're really good when you get them, and all of that. And then people are like, oh, we love you, because then we know it's not always there. And so it's just little tweaks like that, and just kind of worked with it and rolled with each of the punches. But it's, as you know, there's a lot of gut stuff where you're like, okay, I just gave them my whole life savings, so how many people can I call today? And you just get on the phone and start rolling and doing the elbow grease. So anyways, all that to say, and many of you know this as you walk through it, but that's a little bit of that Fly for Good story. But then, as I started looking at a thing called adjacents, this is what they teach you in the business development classes, if you ever take them, is look for adjacent. What's something nearby your industry that you can jump into. And for us, it was travel insurance because we were selling airfare. And I thought, well, travel insurance is good, and insurance is a great industry. It's highly regulated. It moves a lot slower than the airlines, and the government's involved, so that means price fixing. And so I thought that'd be a great thing to jump into. And so looking at it, I'm sorry if I'm getting too excited about that stuff, but I'm a free market guy. Don't worry, I don't like price fixing, unless I can take advantage of it. So the idea was that I started doing a strategy map, and maybe you haven't heard the concept of strategy map. I can kind of go into detail of a strategy map on the breakout session, but basically you look at an industry and you start putting the different types of features that the different products and players in the industry have. So for instance, there's only one car that had discounts and insurance. Nobody ever offered just the discounts as an option, and there's no multi-trip insurance. There's nobody targeting the volunteer market. And so this created this whole, if you look, it creates this whole area up here on the strategy map that whenever you see that you can get a line where nobody else has a line, that's an area of distinction. And so you start walking through where we're at. And the idea is, again, if they're up and you're down and they're down and you're up, that's what you want to be. Unless, like, down here it says good and bad. But the idea is if you're having different areas, you list out the different features of where they focus, you can find ways to differentiate yourself on a strategy map. So I did one of these for just a project in school and realized, well, wait a minute, there's some opportunity here. Whenever you see a big line like that, so it started a thing called the International Volunteer Card. And that's travel insurance and discounts put down to a card for volunteers. And that, again, took a little while to get it to start off, but we took our same idea of borrowing your influence, and I got to borrow the influence from my other company, Fly for Good, so that helped. A lot easier to get a yes. And then buy your first customers. And again, we went to some people and just practically gave it away. And it was one of those classic things. Our first customers in Minnesota, our big customers in Minnesota, and they like to buy from local companies. And so we sit and talk the Minnesota Gophers forever and all, even though I wasn't a huge Gopher fan, if I have to admit it. But anyways, it was one of those moments where we finally got our first one, and then we told everybody in the world that we have this customer, and it started taking off. And that's doubled every year since it started in sales. And then we got our big deal. It's called Compassion International. It's a big billion-dollar nonprofit that'll be buying for all their people, and that's something that'll be fun because then we can brag about them to the whole world. And it's kind of this, kind of get a big customer, tell the whole world, and get a big customer and tell the whole world. And then the idea was starting where you've probably heard this concept with Jim Collins, where you're starting with ideas, where he says you fire bullets, then you fire cannonballs. And the reason he said it harkens back to the old seafaring days, right, in the 1600s when they were going to attack a ship and kill everybody. What they'd do is they'd take a musket and they'd shoot the musket first before they'd shoot a cannonball to catch the wind and what's going on and how thick the mist is over the water and all of these things. So they'd shoot bullets first. And then once they got the right calibration, then okay, shoot all the guns and go for it. And that was just an awesome thing for me to read, is saying, you know what, test out some of these things, shoot your bullets. And so what we would do is we'd start little different sub-niches with interns, a lot of them from North Central. We'd get an intern from North Central or Northwestern and then start it with the intern. And if it took off, then we'd hire the intern and they'd have a job and it'd kind of grow off from there. If it didn't, then, oops, sorry, had a good internship, see ya. And so that's kind of how that worked. And that was our way to be able to low risk, be able to try something like that. And I would say that, again, to any entrepreneur, there are people who would love to intern for something that does not actually make any money yet. Just to be involved in the ground level is something that has the potential of working. So I'm a huge proponent of, hey, fire bullets before you do cannonballs. Start with just low risk, getting interns to help you start whatever, try out whatever niche or whatever division or whatever product it is, and then kind of roll with that. Because it's something that really, really helped out what we were able to do. And if I'm veering, I apologize. I'm just kind of rolling with some of this.